I appreciate y'all joining me. For those of you who have been to one of my webinars before, welcome back. Thank you for thinking I have something decent to say. That is my goal here. For those of you who have not joined one of my webinars, welcome for the first time. For some background, you are joining a webinar that is what I've learned since COVID started. When I first sent out the link or the email, I actually used details from an old webinar. It was actually the first one I ever did last year, and that was about damages. What I'm doing is I'm putting in the comments here the links to the 2 webinars that I did last year about damages. Those webinars are available on my YouTube page. They will be, if you watch them, as enjoyable, if not more enjoyable than this one. Those ones were a lot of fun. And what you will see is that on the YouTube, all you need to go is you'll see the webinars. The first one we did was increasing improving damages, which is right here. Crazy enough, that was April 16th of last year. The next week we did a part 2 of that. We also have done, last year we did 14 webinars, and they are all mixed through here. So if you're interested in a topic, check this out. I'll probably cover some of the same things because I have learned some new things, and I do want to share those. But this webinar is going to cover 3 things. This webinar is going to cover 3 things. It's going to cover the operations that we have, some things we've done on the operational level to help us improve, some things we've done marketing, some good and some bad. This, if I'm doing it again a year later, is probably a good thing. I think these webinars are serving my purpose here and hopefully serving yours. And then we're going to talk about some case strategies, because the number one question that I am asked, and the number one question that I ask everybody else that I talk to who does our kind of work, meaning personal injury work, is how the hell are you moving your cases? What ideas do you have? What's working out? What's not? And we have some ideas and some ways that have worked. If you have ideas, please share them with me. We're all in this together. So I want to hear what you're talking about and what you're doing and what's working for you. So if you haven't been in one of these webinars, or maybe you just don't remember, let me start with my goal here. My goal in this webinar is to tell you one thing, one thing that you don't know or that you forgot. I'm a victim of reading marketing books or practice books or whatever, and then saying at the end of the book, I knew all that stuff. I could remember all that, but there was no way I was going to unless I read the book. So even if I just refresh your memory with one thing that will be helpful to you, I've served my purpose, and I hope that one thing that you can institute in your practice, in your operations, in your life, whatever it is, I hope that makes it worthwhile for the next 45 minutes or so, however long this thing runs. I am purposely trying to make these a little shorter. Back when we started these in April, we ran 14 weeks in a row. And at that point, I'll speak for myself, I didn't have much to do. We were all in this weird quarantine thing that we didn't know what it was at that point or how it was going to work. Work at that moment, everybody was in this holding pattern. So the webinars back then were running an hour plus. My goal here is to make these a little shorter. I'm going to try not to solve the problem of condensing things by talking faster. If I get wound up and start talking, just drop me a comment and say, hey, we're not all from New Jersey like you are. Slow down. So my goal, again, give you one thing that you will incorporate into your practice. I want to tell you a little update about where we've been and how we got here now, almost a month into, it's more than a year, more than a year into COVID. That weekend, whatever it was, March 14th, 15th, 16th, whatever that weekend was, over that weekend, I decided I was going to send everybody from my office home, that we were going to work remotely. And everybody came in that Monday, whatever date it was, and told everyone, grab your stuff and go home. And somebody started leaving like with their briefcase. Somebody else left with their purse. I'm like, no, grab everything. Grab your computer, grab your monitors, grab your phone, grab your keyboard, mouse, speakers, desk chair. Somebody took their desk chair. If Chris Jackson is on here, he took his desk chair home, which is cool. So that's what we did starting in March. And to use Chris Jackson as an example, I did not see him in person for 6 months. One of the lawyers at my firm, I did not see him in person, in the flesh, saw him on video, but I did not see him in person for 6 months. That is just crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy. Now, I want to talk to you about some things we did on the operational level to continue to work together and to continue our work production. And to me, work production is made up of two things. It's made up of work quality, which we strive for excellent work. That's the phrase we use here, excellent work. And how much work you can produce, how much excellent work you can produce. Because the name of this game in the personal injury world is do excellent work and do it as fast as possible to move your cases. And that's why we're going to end this webinar talking about ways to move your cases along. So we had a leg up in the remote virtual working game. And the reason for that was back in 2018, we had a great paralegal. Her name was Savannah. I've probably talked about her before in some of these webinars, but she got engaged and her fiance at the time got a really good job down in Florida. She had some family down there and she said, I'm going to go move to Florida. And I said, well, do you have a new job? She just said no. Thought for a day or two and said to her, hey, let's try this. If you're up for it, why don't you work remotely? And I know Michael Warschauer, for example, if I remember right, he has a paralegal that's in like Montana or Wyoming. So I'm certainly not the only one by far who's ever had remote staff. I see Chris Glover on this, on the chat list. I know his firm has a centralized hub with paralegal and support help that's not always in the same office. And by the way, I'll give him a little plug here. His firm, and he is doing a webinar coming up. They're going to do a series of webinars. I'm excited for those. I would encourage y'all to tune in. If you don't know Chris, shoot him an email. He's one of the nicest guys around, and I'm sure he'll give you the details of the webinar. That's something I'm looking forward to. So anyway, so a lot of people have done virtual employees or remote access before. It's not a new concept. But Savannah was with us for about a year remotely, and we learned a lot of things through that process, which was get everyone cameras if you don't have them. So that way it's not communication over the phone, it's communication on video. And we've incorporated that. A lot of us are back in the office at this moment. We're kind of if you want to come in, you're welcome to. If you don't, that's still okay. We all have individual offices. We are pretty much the only ones on our side of the building, and we can take an elevator directly from the parking garage to our office. So we are at least in a contained space. You see my mask right here. When I leave my office, we put it on. But when we were in full virtual mode, we were doing weekly, at least, group video chats. And that helped a ton, just talking not only about cases, but also just saying hello. I mentioned I didn't see Chris Jackson for 6 months. I talked to him though all the time. I would video in and he'd be in his office wearing some weird cat tank top, doing whatever, hopefully work, who knows. Now I'm sure he was doing work because what the end of this is, the end of the story is we have grown. We have grown from 7 people this time last year to now 11, and we have almost doubled our caseload. So I am not the expert here. If y'all think I am, that's cool. I'm in this with you guys, just trying to figure it as we go. But if you're talking credentials, I am about how to work remotely and all this. I am really proud that we've hired and trained 4 new people, and we've expanded and grown our caseload like that. And I think part of the reason is that we have become an efficient machine. It's really tough to say that we are a machine, that there's repeatable things that you can do with litigation cases because they're all different. But the book I recommend, by the way, is The Power of a System, The Power of a System. The idea that you need to recreate the wheel on everything you do is ludicrous. There are so many things that you can do to make your practice more effective. One thing we did is beef up our template base. When quarantine first happened, I spent weeks going through old cases, current cases, and comparing them to, first, do we have a template? And second, how can I build this template in the most effective way so that everyone can use it? And we are still doing this. We were just doing it recently with pre-suit car accident demands. We have expanded our template base at least threefold, and that has made everybody's job easier. In terms of training people, because that's been one of the biggest challenges, we have trained folks remotely. Alexis, who works here and is our head paralegal, worked here before the pandemic started. She was actually trained by Savannah in Florida. So again, we have a little bit of experience here. But if you all can hop on this webinar and hope to learn something, I promise you, you can train your employees virtually. Is it preferred? Maybe not, but it can be done. Again, I think the way to do this is similar to templates, which is write as much as you can do and provide written product as well as face-to-face interaction and instruction. We've also learned through the pandemic here that the numbers matter a lot. And what I mean by that, I don't mean the case values, although those certainly do matter. In this context, what I mean is that your work productivity matters a lot, and you need to be able to track that. You know, as I walk down the halls here and I see people typing away, I assume you're working. You know, if you're typing away at your computer, you look maybe a little stressed. You're on the phone, I assume you're kicking butt and taking names. But when we're not all in person, then there needs to be a new barometer to, is the work getting done? And we use a system called Asana right now, which is it's a project management system that we've adapted for our cases. And we started relying on that a lot more, looking at that and seeing how many tasks were assigned, what the due date were, whatever the verb is there, whether the due date was met, how far it was pushed off by, or how far in advance it was completed, and then the work quality. So Asana has given us, and it doesn't matter what program you use, but I think if you're going to be remote in any way, and even if you're going to come back to the office, which we will, I'll talk about that in a second, but we're going to be back in the office. But one lesson we learned is to look at the objective numbers for work productivity. Now that's not the end all be all. The fact that somebody, you know, did 15 tasks and somebody else only did 10 in a day, that doesn't mean that one person is better than the other. You got to factor in what the tasks were, the work product. But what I want to stress to y'all is you need a way, a system to track work productivity. That first part specifically of work productivity, which is how much work is being produced. And then the second part is it excellent work, or whatever the standard is you have in your office. If you don't have a standard, steal mine, steal somebody else's. Pound that standard into your employee's head and your team member's head. We do excellent work here. We do excellent work here. Next week, we're going to talk, or actually in 2 weeks. I'm so used to saying next week on these webinars, but in 2 weeks on the 25th, the topic's going to be growth. And I'm going to have at least one guest, maybe two. But one of the things that I will share next week is in 2 weeks, sorry, I caught myself again. What I'll share with you then is our employee contract, which is aspirational and provides expectations. And I don't know how many times the phrase excellent work is in there, but it is a ton. And it's something that we say constantly. When somebody gives me a work product now that and asks me to look over, a lot of times I say, is this the best you can do? Is this excellent work? And it's funny how often the answer is no, I can do better. And then somebody goes and does it. It's also, you know, there's a lot of times that, yeah, this is my best stuff. Okay, then I don't need to read it. I trust you. So one takeaway from the pandemic is that you need to be able to evaluate your employees and evaluate their product on a numbers standpoint and also a quality standpoint. So let me talk to you now about what has, in terms of marketing, what has worked and what hasn't. Everybody loves talking about marketing. What has worked? Webinars, Webinars have worked. Uh, Let me first, though, define what works means to me. When something works, the first thing that it means to me is, am I getting some sort of business value? And I have. I've gotten business value from this because I've met people that I do not know, which the name of my game is meet people. Hopefully they think I'm good at what I do, and then get them to give me a chance on a case. And if we're able to then, have an ongoing relationship, that's awesome. Excuse me. If I'm able to learn from that person about what they're doing in their practice, that's awesome. If I'm able to feel like I'm taking one small inch step forward in the practice, I feel like I've met the business purpose. But, and this is my global marketing theory, I will only do things, no matter how positive they are for my business, I will only do things that I enjoy doing. I've learned that over the years. If you told me right now that if I wrote a weekly marketing newsletter or a weekly newsletter, I think of Ken Shigley's. He sends out an email. I actually go back to Chris Glover, Beasley Allen, their newsletter. I mean, I get a ton of newsletters. I read most of them. I like reading them. I do not want to write them at all. I never want to write a newsletter. That is just not something I want to do. But even if you told me I could get 2 new cases per week, and which is a lot for us, I'm not going to write a damn newsletter. I just don't want to do it. If you told me I could do a webinar once a week and get 1 case or a newsletter for 2, I'm doing the webinar. So my belief, my theory, at least for myself, is I will only do things that I enjoy doing. And I enjoy doing these webinars. They're fun. I preparing for them is tough. It's actually tougher than what I've remembered. Especially when you don't have a guest. So having 45 minutes or so to talk is a challenging aspect. I want to show you how I do this for real. And that's kind of my other thing about these webinars or anything that I do marketing. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be real as best as I can. And I'm going to show you how I do things. If you want to copy, for lack of a better eloquent phrase, if you want to copy what I do, cool. Invite me to your webinar. I want to be involved. Show me. I'll learn something and I'll have fun. If you're thinking that there's a huge technological gap between you and me, that I have some huge setup here in my office, I'm going to show you something. Usually I do have what's called a Loom Cube. This is from this morning. This is from this morning. So I have a lamp without a shade, and I have 2 other desk lamps. When it's sunny outside, I'm pointing at my window. When it's sunny outside, I don't need any of these lamps, but today, crappy weather. So I've got as much light as I can. Usually I have a Loom Cube right here. I'll be honest with you, I forgot it at home this morning. And then I have a camera that I bought on eBay back when I started to do these. I bought it for like 150 bucks because it was hard to find. Now it's like 50 bucks. So this is literally my setup. This is it. It's not some high-tech fancy thing. You can see I'm about to start an electrical fire with the two power strips. So hopefully we can last long enough. If you hear the screams in the background, that's a fire. But this is it. And I've done webinars from boats, hotel conference rooms, apartments, trying to think of where else, my house. So you can literally just carry a light around with you. The Loom Cube is like this big. It's really cool. It sticks on wherever you want to stick it. But your webinar setup is a laptop or an iPad. iPad's a really good camera. An iPad, a camera, whichever you want to use, and maybe a light, depending on how bright it is. I have a microphone, which I typically use, but the value add is not huge. And like this webinar, I just said I'm not even going to plug it in, and I've got enough wires running all around here. So with these webinars, it takes me about, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, it takes me about 3 hours to prepare for 1 hour. Part of it is just thinking out loud, going to other people in the office and asking them what the deal is, what they'd want to hear about, what they find interesting. So getting ideas from other people, mapping it out, usually scrapping that after a day and saying, I don't like any of this, and then starting the process over. And then I walk around like a crazy person this morning and last night saying the webinar in my head. The truth is I end up saying nothing that I've said, nothing I've practiced saying or just said in my head or out loud, I will say today, but I have a general idea of what I'm going to tell y'all. So that is the webinar setup, and that is it. Some of the things that have really helped improve the webinar. And if you don't know this, because you haven't had one of these webinars or been on one of these, I'll tell you. If you have been here, you know the process, which is I'm going to upload this to YouTube. To get a YouTube name, my YouTube name is youtube.com/Rafi Law Firm. You only need 100 followers. So it's not some huge number. And you upload the video for free. It's easy. I use cutting software that's free online to trim it a little bit. And then I send out, and here's probably the key, I send out a follow-up email to everybody on this list. Y'all will get it, which will have all of the things that I've talked about. When we get into cases, I'm going to show you 3 or 4 things, work product of ours, real work product. And I'll send that to you, and hopefully that helps you. That value add, adding value to someone else, is how I get business. I try to help people, whether that's through the webinar, the written work product, whether that's through the LinkedIn tips of the day I do. If you don't follow me on LinkedIn or we're not connected, please do. I write a tip of the day every day. During quarantine, I was doing videos, sit right here and literally just do a video. They were 30 seconds long. So I am trying to add value to people because I think that will make them come back to me. And I'm trying to do things that I enjoy and don't cost me a lot of money and don't cost me a ton of time. You know, this webinar is a big time commitment given the prep. But the tip of the day that I do on LinkedIn, it might as well be called things I think about throughout the day. Something crosses my mind, I'm like, oh, I think that might be a good tip, and then I just put it up there. The value, though, that everybody sees that is good. And I've shared this before, and I'll share it again. The key to the LinkedIn, my tips of the day, isn't the tip. I hope the tip helps everybody. I mean, I really do. There are things I think about and things that I'm like, oh, that sounds good. What matters to me, though, are the first however many words. Georgia personal injury lawyer. Georgia personal injury lawyer. And that way, something like 3,000 to 4,000 people see, on average, my tips. 3,000 or so people are seeing Mike Rafi, Georgia personal injury lawyer. Oh yeah, there's a tip of the day and there's the tip, but I want people to associate me with helping people by providing tips and what I do, that I'm a personal injury lawyer. I'm not good at anything else, don't know how to do anything else. So if you're going to associate me with something, I hope that's it. Let me look at my list and see what other brilliant thoughts I thought of. Another thing that has helped us, and we've always done these, but we've really zeroed in and started doing them more often, are update emails. If you've referred me a case, if you're on this list, you may know what I'm talking about. Every month or so, 4 to 6 weeks, we send every referring lawyer an email. It's not an auto-generated bullshit email. It's a real email that we write, and we all edit among each other. It's a real email. Again, some time, but and we send, here's the case update. Here's what's going on. Even if we don't take the case, if you just refer us a case, we spend a lot of time vetting the case, probably telling you things you already know. Here are the limits. Here's the venue options. Here's what we see. Here are the challenges. Here are the positives. That helps people. It also shows we're competent with our work and that we're doing a good job. We follow the 5th grade approach of show your work. Even if you get the wrong answer in math class in 5th grade, generally the teacher will throw you some points. Yeah, you might have added wrong, but you had the idea down. And that math problem or math issue you had, that addition issue, maybe mess up the multiplication later. Well, if we're going to show our work at every step along the way, I think that's going to show the lawyers that we work with that we're doing a good job. I mean, hell, we got to tell the clients what's going on anyway. And former clients have been a huge help to us recently. And I think part of that is because we've taken the time to reach out to them on a consistent basis. This was a failing this is something that we failed in up until quarantine. We were not doing a good job of consistently contacting clients and having a reason to do so. So we started really small. We started with a birthday list where every month we would send a written letter to somebody or to all of the people who had birthdays that month. So we'd say, hey, your birthday's this month, happy birthday. That worked somewhat. Clients said, hey, thanks. But calling, emailing, however it is that we communicated with them, that worked way better. And part of the reason we've grown is because former clients are coming back to us, hopefully not them themselves, but family members and friends of them are giving us the option to help them. So we've done a better job during quarantine of making a system to reach out to former clients, because those are people that are already in your corner. You've already done a good job for them. I mean, hell, at the end of my case, I hand them a check. Literally, I hand you a check for tens, hundreds, millions, whatever it is of dollars. And you can't be that upset with me. You might be upset with your case. You might think it's unfair. It probably is. You might think there should be more insurance, whatever. But if you've done a good job, you've made that client realize that you've done your part in the process. We've also started reaching out to lawyers, saying hello. I had a rule in my car when I first opened up my practice that anytime I got in the car, I would call somebody and just say hello. I would just call somebody and say hello. And I'd call until I got somebody on the phone. One mistake I made during quarantine was one night I was just bored. And I texted like all individual texts, but I texted like 200 people, said, hey, what's going on? How's quarantine going? And I guess I underestimated that everybody else was also probably sitting at home bored as all. And I got like 200 texts back and then sat there responding. So what I would tell you to do is, if you're going to contact clients, if you're going to contact former clients, if you're going to contact referring lawyers, make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew. Here's what hasn't worked for us. Doing nothing and feeling sad for yourself. Doing nothing and feeling sad for yourself doesn't work. I, for a little while, did nothing and felt sad for myself. That was the time between March and I guess middle of March to the beginning of April. So for like a week or two, I sat there doing nothing. It actually switched from being sad and doing nothing to being an absolute lunatic in like a manic frenzy. That's what was going on in my life between when we shut the office down, fear, being scared, being sad, being worried, and having all those feelings and emotions at the same time. But then I decided to do something about it. And that's where the webinar started. So what I will tell you is that it's really daunting. It's scary to think to yourself, imagine you haven't done any of the things I've talked about. Maybe you haven't done any marketing ever. If I was you, and I've been you before, I would sit there very overwhelmed thinking to myself, how am I going to do all this? How am I going to reach former clients? I don't even have any former clients. How am I going to do webinars? How am I going to do mailers? How am I going to do email updates? Whatever. You don't have to do all that. Just do one thing. Just do one thing. After this webinar, decide, I'm going to incorporate one thing that Mike talked about or that I thought about while I was talking, maybe. And I'm going to try that out. And I'm going to do it for a period of time that's consistent enough where I can see if the results work. It's repeatable. It's not a huge expenditure of time and money. And I want to see if I like it. And if all those boxes are checked in a month or two, whatever your time period is, then keep doing it. And it will become a habit. You know, I don't know what the stat is, how often you have to do something to make it a habit. But if it's 10 o'clock and I haven't done a tip of the day, for example, I start getting the shakes. My body's saying to me, you haven't done your tip. I've been doing it now for 2.5 years or something. So it's just part of what I do. These webinars that I did for 14 weeks in a row every Thursday morning, that became part of me. So don't feel overwhelmed. Don't think it's some mountain you have to climb. Just pick one thing and do it. The things that, and the list of things we've tried that haven't worked is like a scroll that would hit the floor and roll all the way out. But another thing that hasn't worked for us are actually mailers, mailing things to people, which I was surprised by. My thought was if I mail things to people, they'll be home. But most people, at least the people that refer me cases, I don't have your home address. I send it to your office. And you know where you weren't during quarantine? Your office. You know, I don't know, somebody told me that their office manager would come in, I said, hey, did you get my mailer? They said, no, I didn't get your mailer. My office manager comes in, she throws out all the bullshit, all the crap. And I'm sitting there going, uh-huh. And then what happens? And then she sends me all the stuff that's important. And I'm sitting there going, did you just say my mailer was bullshit? He's like, yeah, I don't care about your mailer. I don't give two craps about your mailer. I was like, oh, okay. And I guarantee that person wasn't the only person to say that to or think that. He's the only person to say it to me. So I stopped doing mailers. They were actually they were also time consuming, and for what they were, stamp wise, they were expensive for what it was. We also tried a little bit of the internet. Now, if you've been with me through any of the marketing webinars I've done, which again, you can find on the YouTube, I have never invested in the internet. I'm like an older dude, an older guy who, asks about the interwebs. It's just not something I want to do. I don't necessarily want my phone to ring as much or all the time where I'm having to say no and, getting citizens, normal people to sign up with us. That's great if they have a great case, but mostly I want to work with other lawyers. So we invested a little bit in the internet. I just didn't like it. I didn't like that I was now becoming I was becoming someone who instead of getting value, I was just trying to reach people with ads or whatever we did. Frankly, I was so uninterested in it. I didn't really want to know. But that wasn't something that I found a ton of value in. I also knew that what I was comfortable spending on the internet was never going to compete with whoever is spending the most on the internet. For stupid numbers here, my $1 wasn't going to compete with somebody who was spending $100, and I was never going to spend $100. So, we tried out the internet for a brief time period. It was not something that worked for us, probably because nobody was in their car at the moment and nobody was getting hurt because everybody was sitting at home. But also, it just wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. So my takeaway, I guess, from this operational segment here is for operations and marketing is you need to make sure that what you're doing is appropriate for a business and is trackable and is something that's adding value to your business somehow, whether that's you defining that as meeting more people, extending your network, actually getting cases. Whatever it is you do, I think you have to set benchmarks for how you're going to evaluate if something you're doing inside your office or marketing outside your office is working. Those benchmarks we use here, for example, are how many people am I growing my network? How many different people are we getting referrals from? I'd frankly rather have a referral from a new person than a referral from an old person if I'm picking, because I already have a relationship with the old person. The new person I have so much more potential with. And also we try to evaluate how much time that is taking. Actually, I forgot to mention this, and it just crossed my mind for the first time. We went to a system of timekeeping when we were out of the office. We did it for two reasons. One, to hold people accountable. There are people in my office that I never want to come back to the office because they do so much work and the work is so excellent and they do it from home. I don't care where you are. There are other folks in my office that, I might even be one of them, that if I'm home and I'm supposed to do work, I'm going to do laundry. I'm going to do my dishes. I'm going to vacuum. I'm going to fold clothes. I'm even going to move the clothes from the washer machine to the dryer, which I never do. I'm going to do all that before I start doing work. So if you're a procrastinator, for example, maybe you need to come into work. So we started making people keep time. And an unintended consequence of that, a positive consequence, was we were able to look at how much our marketing was taking in terms of time and then evaluate, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Should I be spending more time on certain things that are meeting our benchmarks, or should I spend less time because maybe the value add of that extra hour isn't worth it? So my takeaway is you need to be able to evaluate what you're doing, and I think you're only going to enjoy doing something if you actually like it, and you're only going to keep doing it if you actually like it. All right, so those are some of my overall operations and marketing ideas. I'll also mention to you that you may be sitting there thinking, I'm never going to go back into the office ever. I'm never going to do that. And that's fine if that works for your team. We are always going to have office space at my law firm, and we are always going to have I don't want to call it a FaceTime requirement. The expectation is always going to be that you're going to come into the office when it's safe and when there's no reason for you not to. And that is not the most cost efficient thing, because working from home is actually probably cheaper because you don't need the office space. But there is a benefit to collaboration and people being in the office, and it's really fun. One of the most fun things I did during quarantine was play ping pong here in this building. Downstairs, there's a ping pong table. I don't know how many hours I spent playing ping pong, but I'm not doing that from home, sitting alone. And that was something that was really enjoyable that is lost if people in your office aren't there. When people are working remotely, you also lose the collaboration effect. The reason I wanted more lawyers here when I first started, the reason why I wanted to grow was because I wanted people to bounce ideas off of. I wanted people that were better than me at a lot of things to tell me what I should do and how I should do it, spitball ideas, talk about what works and doesn't, and you lose that collaboration. At least it's not as easy if you're all just in the same location. You know, we still did it over a video, but it's a lot easier to do when the person is knock on the wall next to you. Michael Arndt asked how we were keeping time. We kept time in 15-minute segments. I used to do defense work. He did too. A lot of y'all did. I was not keeping 6-minute increments. I would rather punch myself in the face or stab myself with a dull pencil than keep 6-minute increments. So we were not extremely strict. The idea was to get an idea of what the time is you're spending. So that's what we did. All right, let's talk about, I guess this is the grand finale. Let's talk about the number one question that I've been asked and the number one question I ask everybody over the last 10 months, 9 months, 11 months, whatever the math is there. How the hell have you been moving cases? How have you been moving cases? Before I get there, I have to give one more side note. If you are going to do webinars or put product on the internet or social media or whatever, please know people will use that against you. I just cursed and it made me think of that because I said to myself, oh, someone may use the fact that I said shit or bullshit or whatever I said against me. I don't care. I don't care if someone doesn't want to work with me because I use foul language. We're not going to get along. I'm sorry. But I had somebody who went back through a webinar, a defense lawyer, a bad faith webinar where I had my buddy Austin Bersinger on here who does a ton of that work. And I kid you not, our motto, the takeaway, which was said explicitly throughout the webinar, the takeaway was, if you are trying to exceed the policy limits on a case because of a negligent failure to settle, use negligent failure to settle, not bad faith. Bad faith sounds worse, sounds like you got to prove more. Use negligent failure to settle. So anyway, if you believe that the insurance company negligently failed to settle, or if you are giving them an opportunity to act negligently in failing to settle, our motto, our takeaway was, don't set them up. Don't do crazy things to try to get the insurance company to mess up, to fail. They are humans. They are large companies. They are inefficient. They're going to fail. They're overworked. They're going to fail. That was the takeaway. And you're welcome to go on the YouTube. I almost used the F word there because this makes me mad, but you're welcome to go on YouTube and take a look at that webinar. I thought it was one of our best ones, but you'll hopefully have the same takeaway. Well, that webinar was cited in a motion to enforce a settlement because what happened in one of our cases is that we gave an insurance company a fair opportunity to settle the case and they messed up. They mailed a check to the wrong location. Not my fault. Demand says where you should mail the check to. Or maybe it was the release. It was either a check or release. It says where you should mail whatever to. I didn't hide that. It's written right there in black and white. But in this motion, I would say out of the 15 pages of nonsense, and if this lawyer is watching the webinar, cool, use this one next time. Out of the 15 pages of motion to enforce, of the motion to enforce that he filed, I would say 5 or 6 of them was that I was a bad person because I'm saying you should set up insurance companies. So remember, as you're doing this marketing, that you are projecting and saying things not just to your audience, your intended audience, but you're saying things to everybody from every walk of life, including people that are on the other side of the V from you in your cases. Now, I'm comfortable with that, and I didn't even give credence to the nonsense about my webinar in the briefing, but that was a surprise to me, and I was pretty annoyed by that. So, word of caution. So I'm going to show you real things that we've done in our cases, knowing that these may be used against me down the line. But we're going to work the cases that we in the way that we always do. And the work that we do is not a secret for the most part. It's not a secret. And you can duplicate some of these things. So you got a case, and let's say it's a new case. I want to walk you through what we've been doing. And I lied. I guess I'm going to hit the hour mark. Sorry. I'm going to go as quick as I can. I'm going to skip the fact of signing up cases virtually. We use DocuSign. It's nothing fancy. We've also, and I'm going to gloss over that we've realized that witness statements, getting them is so much easier. I don't ever want to meet a witness in person unless I have to now. I just want to give them a call, ask them to do video, either do a virtual notary or record on Zoom, schedule a Zoom meeting and make them come to the meeting, ask them nicely, and then record them. I mean, hell, that's better than an affidavit. So when we start working a case, here's what the important stuff. When we start working a case, we make a decision up front, a conscious decision. Are we going to work this case loudly, or are we going to work this case quietly? To me, when I work a case loudly, it is a conscious decision that I am going to make waves. And I don't mean controversial waves. I mean, I'm going to do work that the other side sees, and they're going to know that I'm working my ass off. I'm going to take a shit ton of depositions. I'm going to file motions if I have to. I'm going to serve lots of discovery. I'm going to work the case loudly. You're going to know about it. Or I'm going to work the case very silently. I'm going to go get that one affidavit from that one important witness. I'm going to prepare my client for the deposition, and then I'm just going to be cool outwardly. I'm not going to show the defense lawyer all the work I'm doing. You know, instead of sending a subpoena somewhere, I'm going to go write them a letter and ask them really nicely, will you give me those documents without me filing a subpoena or doing a deposition? So that way I get the information, but it's more quiet, it's stealth. Now that decision was harder before quarantine, whether we're going to be loud or not, because you could be quiet, especially in a case where you can compile everything you need, put it in a box, and then wait for trial or wait for some moment to pounce. Well, you don't have the trial option right now, right? I mean, I don't think I will have a trial until the middle of 2022. That's my prediction. So now the decision is easier, and we have decided more and more that we need to be loud at what we do and make noise so that we're giving defense firms, defense lawyers, insurance companies the reason to settle. So from the time we file the case, and we are filing immediately on cases that we would maybe wait, I want to see the insurance limits, I want to talk to this witness first, I want to do something. Screw that. File the case immediately, so that way, a year, 2, whatever it is, you are in line ahead of other people to try your case. You know, you try cases in the order that they're filed, generally. So if I can file a case in January instead of March, I'm skipping the line a little bit. So we've started filing cases even faster than we ordinarily do. Typically, we file cases very fast to begin with, but even on the cases that we're on the fence about whether we should do it right now, we're erring on the side of being aggressive. So that gets the process started. We have been sending an incredible number of offers of judgment and offers of settlement. And I want to briefly talk to you about the 2 different ones. OCGA 91168 is the statute that governs here. And if you read it closely, there's offers of judgment and offers of settlement. Prior to COVID, we would send offers of judgment when we did not We sent offers of judgment when we did not want the offer paid, when we were trying to create risk and leverage that we would use later. And that's because an offer of judgment, you're saying to the other side, I will settle the case if you allow the court to enter a judgment against you. And most corporate defendants do not want a judgment against them. It hurts them, their credit, possibly. It hurts their insurance. It's public. So there's no confidentiality in a judgment. So that's what we would do. When we wanted to settle the case, when we wanted to actually settle the case, we sent offers of settlement. So an offer of judgment enters a judgment. An offer of settlement settles the case privately, confidentially. There's the word. However it is that you're going to draft up the agreement. And that gives the defendant more options and I think makes it more likely that they will be willing to pay the money. Since COVID, though, we've been sending up both. And part of the reason we do that is we send the offer of judgment first. Or I reverse that. We send the offer of settlement first, and if they don't pay it, we follow it up with an offer of judgment. The reason we do that is we take away the offer of settlement, say we're not going to settle it for favorable terms. Now we want a judgment against you. People get mad about that. I don't care. Here's what I've had happen though, and I had never before COVID had an offer of judgment actually entered. Typically, I get the phone call that says, hey, you filed this offer of judgment. My clients are willing to pay it. If they don't want to enter the judgment, are you willing to change it into a settlement? Generally, we say yes. We have stopped that. This is a case that we sent an offer of judgment. I'm going to send this out to you guys so you can see. One interesting thing about it is that there are two defendants right here, two defendants. So this is how we, and I don't expect y'all to read this, but we promise that we will settle with both of them. So this is how we do that will resolve the case with both of them. So that's how we do that. This was a $500,000 offer of judgment. Make sure you state, pursuant to the statute, just track the statute, whether there's punitive damages or attorney's fees involved. In this case, this was the first one, and there have been others since. It was paid. The defense paid the judgment. So we've had success with offers of judgment, and we've sent them earlier than we ever have. We've been sending more of them, and we've been more aggressive in the number, meaning the number that we want to settle the case for. There's no rule against saying, I'm going to start, easy numbers, I'm going to start at $1 million with an offer of judgment. And when they don't pay that, I'm going to then go to 950. When they don't pay that, I'll go to 900. When they don't pay that, I will keep going down. And if your number that you're willing to settle for is 750, I'm going to keep going down, lowering the number, keeping the risk to the defendant though. And I'm still going to stop at the number that I want. Maybe they'll settle for 800. Maybe I'll get to that 750 though, and they won't, and then I'll have the leverage built in. So we've been sending a ton of offers of judgment and offers of settlement. We have also started sending offers of judgment against carriers in certain situations. 91168 says that offers of judgment and settlement can be filed and served upon parties. Now, not to get too deep in the weeds, but generally speaking, uninsured motorist carriers are not parties. They act like parties. We serve them. We can give them discovery. They can participate in discovery and depositions and all that, but they are not parties until they decide to be. So for example, we have a case right now. It is a Uber drunk driving case. It's an Uber drunk driving case. Our client was in an Uber as a passenger. Our client was hit by another vehicle where there was a drunk driver. And what we have done is we sued all the insurance companies involved, or we filed against them, and we sued the defendant. We settle with the defendant for the limits, and then we have Now, has a choice. They can either defend in the name of the drunk driver, who wants to do that, or they can defend as their own name. And once my position is This is work in progress, people. My position is once they start defending in their own name, once they say that they are a party, that they're electing to defend in their own name, well, now you're substituting yourself for the drunk driver in this case, and you're a party. So I'm going to serve you with an offer of judgment, an offer of settlement, whatever I think is appropriate. I think that is pretty solid. I feel good about that. We've also taken it one step further. We are, before the UM even elects to defend in their own name, we're sending that offer of judgment to the UM. Because if they later become a party, my argument's going to be they're a party. Now, granted, they weren't a party at the time that we sent them the offer of judgment, or the offer of settlement, but then we'll send another one once they affirmatively elect that they will be. The question I just got asked, do we send the offers of settlement immediately after filing? You have to wait 30 days. It can't be served until 30 days after the answer or after the complaint. I'm going to think about this. It's 30 days after the complaint is served, I believe. I need to check on that. It's escaping me at the moment. But I believe once the answer is filed / 30 days after you serve the complaint, then you can do it. So we wait that long. We send them very early. The reason you want to send them very early is so that the clock is ticking very early. You're not going to like what I'm going to say now. It is the safest practice to track your time on cases after you serve an offer of judgment, an offer of settlement. The law is in flux. The Couch case and some other line, that whole line of cases about how to prove attorney's fees is in pursuant to an offer of judgment is in flux. It's not well settled. So you typically want to be able to ask for your contractual rate and also back that up with hours. So when you send offers of judgment, offers of settlement, after they're rejected, either because the defense says affirmatively no, or because 30 days elapses and now it's rejected automatically, you want to start tracking your time and your expenses, of course, because you can get those pursuant to the statute. So tracking time, not the favorite thing for everybody to do, but it is certainly worth it. Another question I got was, what do you make of the argument that you should always send separate offers of judgment or offers of settlement to multiple defendants? We do send separate ones. We do send separate ones. I'll send the two that we sent out in that case. They're mirrored of each other, except one says, if you agree to settle, I'll settle with everybody. The other one says, if you agree to settle, the other person, then I'll settle with everyone. That'll make more sense when you get it. I don't see any reason. I don't think it matters the form, but I think it's cleaner if you send separate ones in multi-defendant cases. Demands, 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 send demands. Send demands. Now you can't send a demand until, at least you can send a demand whenever you want, but I think it's only effective to send demands once you have new information you can present. So if you send a pre-suit demand and you get told no, I think you file suit, you go and get some good discovery, get some evidence, and you send a demand right away that says, hey, we learned this new fact, this helps us, pay us. You learned something else, send them another demand. We learned this new fact, pay us. Send as many demands as you possibly can. And I'm not talking demands that are policy limit. I'm not only talking policy limit demands, so that way you're building leverage and potentially getting a negligent failure to settle situation. That's great and all. I'm talking even in cases that are below limits, because everybody's got a boss. And that adjuster, that defense lawyer, is going to have to explain to somebody down the line that they had 13 chances because you sent 13 demands to settle the case and they didn't, and then you recovered more. And I believe each demand that you send, when it gets to some sort of critical number, usually 5, I find 5 or 6 demands, suddenly now people start getting nervous. And you say to the adjuster or the defense lawyer, hey, you're going to have to explain why your side denied 5 demands, 6 demands, 10 demands. If I go and get this verdict I think I can get, somebody's going to have to be blamed for that. And I hope it's not you. I hope it's not you. When you send offers of judgment, offers of settlement, demands, make sure you're also accompanying them with an unliquidated damage demand. What unliquidated damages is if you send $100,000 demand and it is not paid, and then you go and get a verdict for $100,000 or more, you get interest on that $100,000. You get a interest on the original demanded amount. Again, you're creating more leverage and more risk to the other side. Another thing that we've done to move cases is we've been in a situation very recently where discovery is over in the case. It's basically done. The only thing left is having a trial or getting some motions for summary judgment filed. Now, we're in state court. There's no scheduling order as of now. And we're saying to ourselves, hey, if we get past summary judgment, because this is a tough case, if we get past summary judgment, we are then in position to have a tremendous recovery and maybe even settle the case sooner than a trial. But we can't get them to file their motion for summary judgment, which I know they're going to. I can't get them to do that. So we've talked about filing our own, which we're going to do. Spoiler alert to those people watching the webinar. We are going to file our own motion for summary judgment, which will then egg them on to file theirs. And we've asked the court for a scheduling order. And this is a simple, very simple thing you can do. I'll show you a length of one that we've done. It's very easy. I'll send it out to you. This is the entire order. You see it ends with plaintiff asks that this court grant the attached proposed scheduling order. And what we do in here is we explain, hey, judge, we've been working our butts off in the case. We've done a lot of things. We're at a stopping point. There isn't anything else to do. We wish there was. We would go do it. But we really need some deadlines because if not, the case is just going to sit here forever. Literally, just sit here. So I try to keep judges out of our cases. I don't want them involved. But in a situation like this, the judge is the only one that can make the other side do what we need them to do. So we just nicely asked, and this worked for us. The order was granted. So I will send this out to you too in my email that will likely come tomorrow. I see some questions and answers. Let's see. Real quick, I'll go through these. Are you recording? Yes. What lighting am I using? Man, do I look like a model or something? That's awesome. I'll send out the picture of my elaborate setup. I'll also send out a link to the YouTube that we just did. And I seem to remember that you can only do an unliquidated interest demand once. Robert, I don't know. I'm going to find that out. Actually, I copy and paste your question right now. And I'm going to find that out because I'm interested to know that. All right. Let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to cover for you guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you our offer of judgment / offer of settlement templates. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to give you 2 that we've actually served. Remember, you only serve the offer of judgment and file the certificate of service. Judge doesn't need to know how much you're willing to settle the case for. So I'm going to send you our Word template so you can just plug it in. I'm going to send you 2 examples that are actually filed. I'm going to send you this nice picture of my lighting setup, which is poor, to be honest, today. I'm also going to send you our motion for a scheduling order, which we've used effectively. So I appreciate y'all joining me. It's nice to be back on the bandwagon, back off the wagon. I don't know which. It's nice to be doing these webinars again. For those of you I don't know, I'll reiterate, please reach out to me. I'm going to send you an email in the next day or 2. And it's really easy. Respond back and let's do a web thing. Let's talk to each other. I'd have a ton of fun doing that. I'd like to get to know you guys. I'm going to do one of these in 2 weeks, the 25th. The topic is going to be growth. That's going to be growth on a firm level. I'm going to get into much more of the details of how we've grown. And I'm also going to talk about how I've grown and how I think lawyers can grow. It's not about me. How I think lawyers can grow professionally. And my answer is not going to be just go read statutes and read books and go on webinars. I think that there are things that you can do to grow how you represent people and how you're growing as a professional. But like I said, I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. I'm learning as we all go along. I appreciate y'all joining me. I hope that I found or that you found that there's one thing I said today that will make your life more interesting, more fun, help your practice. and help us all get through this. Last thing I will say is that I miss meeting people. We're lucky here in Atlanta that we are able, if comfortable, to go outside, eat in places, and still be relatively safe. If y'all are interested in doing something in terms of grabbing lunch, grabbing breakfast, or doing something virtually, please reach out. I would appreciate that. I'd love to have more human interaction. For those of you who are thinking about doing a webinar or thinking about expanding your marketing in any ways that I already do it, call me up. Call me up and I'll tell you even more, and I'll give you even more details about how I do these things. It's really, really easy. I was just talking to someone the other day about the Zoom subscription that I use to do these webinars, so we can have up to 500 people. It's really cost effective, but I'll tell you everything. I truly mean it. I'm here to tell you how we do things. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it gets you thinking about ways that you can do things differently that you'll later share with me, which would be awesome. So I enjoyed this. I hope you did too. I hope it was helpful. My advice, if I can, is remember that our obligation is to be people first, to be humans first, to be good people. And that is our obligation first. Our obligation second is to our clients and the work and all the other noise in our lives. So for whatever it is that makes you happy, makes you content, and makes you feel good about yourself, go do that. And this, I'll share with you, has made me feel good and excited today. I've enjoyed, hopefully, helping you guys. I'd love to hear from you. But with that, I'm always available. I'm going to put my email and my phone number in here. Here's my email, if I can spell it right. Again, here's my phone number. I'm always here to be a helpful resource for you. I'm here to tell you all the things that I've done wrong over the years and the things that haven't worked. And the few things that have worked, I'm going to keep doing them and sharing them with you. So see everybody. If you have questions or want to talk about something, I'm going to hang on here just for a few minutes. And that's all I got. Thanks for joining me. Hope you have a good Thursday. Hope you stay safe. I imagine, I'm looking outside, I imagine we're going to have some cases today, given the weather. For better or worse, some people are going to be in some crashes. So see y'all.